G'day, I'm Melissa Shannon, founder of digitalscrapbookinghq.com, and today I'm here with you in Adobe's newest edition of Photoshop Elements. This year is the 20th anniversary for Photoshop Elements, and to celebrate its 20th birthday, they have released Photoshop Elements 2022. So I'm here to show you all the new features in Photoshop Elements 2022. If you previously used an older version of Adobe Photoshop Elements, stick around to see what's new. And if you're wondering if you should upgrade, check out my video all about whether you should upgrade to Photoshop Elements 2022. So let's get started. Today you can see on the screen the brand new welcome screen that loads whenever you start Photoshop Elements. This gives you a summary of some new features and tells you to try some features you may not have tried before. When you very first open Photoshop Elements, it'll ask you which previous version you've used, and you can choose your version from that drop down and see special cards to help you make the most of the new features. You can also see the auto creations that Photoshop Elements Organizer has made for you, and you can open them if you'd like to. You can click View All to view all of the creations that it has made for you so far. Click Home to get back to home. And then you can see the three icons for the three programs that are part of the Elements family. Organizer helps you organize your photos and videos. Photo Editor, or as we call it, Photoshop Elements, will help you edit your photos and moving images. And then we have Premiere Elements, which is the video editor that will help you edit your videos. You can also create video slideshows with the organizer. So it's great to have all three. You can purchase Photoshop Elements for $99.99 in the US, or you can upgrade from $79.99. Both Photoshop Elements and Premiere Elements come with the organizer, and the same organizer is used with both programs, so you can keep your whole photo and video library together. And here we've got a list of the recently used files so you can get back to them quickly. Now, if you prefer not to go through this welcome screen every single time, you can just click on your icon and then pin it to your taskbar for future use. So let's start off with Photoshop Elements 2022 Editor. The Photoshop Elements Editor has been given a facelift, as has the Organizer and Premiere Elements. To celebrate 20 years of Photoshop Elements, they're giving us a light and bright interface. What do you think? Do you like it? As usual, we have a quick edit mode, guided edits, which give you tutorials to make common photo editing processes easier. And then we have the expert mode, which is what I spend most of my time in when I'm doing digital scrapbook pages and photo editing. The quick mode is much the same as Photoshop Elements 2021. We've got some smart fixes and different things you can do to your photos. If you want to learn more about using the quick mode, I've got a link for you here. Let's first jump in to the guided edit. Here we have two brand new guided edits. The first one we're going to look at is under Special Edits, and it's called the Perfect Pet. So when you're going to use a guided edit, the first thing you'll need to do is click on the photo that you would like to use from your photo bin, and then click Perfect Pet. If you have only one photo open, it will automatically use that one. So here is a photo from many years ago of my family pet, and we're going to see how we can turn this into a perfect pet portrait. On the right hand side, you can see the step-by-step guided edits. The first step is to click on Crop or Straighten to straighten your photo. I don't think I need to really crop this very much. It doesn't need straightening. Now, what we do want to remove is her collar, which is just poking out here. So we're just going to hold down the Alt key and then click, click, click to get rid of that green tag. Now it's gone. So the next step is to fix pet eye. It says drag a rectangle around the pupil to remove the glare. Let's zoom in a little bit, and we're actually going to drag over the whole eye, because if we just drag over the pupil, it's not going to work. Let me show you what I mean. If I just click and drag over that pupil, it says an eye could not be found. So let's just draw over the two eyes, and beautiful, that is done. Now we're going to remove dirt and spots. Well, she doesn't really have much dirt, but she does have quite a few wispy hairs. Maybe there's a little bit of dirt on the chin here. She's a very fluffy puppy. And then I'm going to actually use this to remove this chair leg from the background, or table leg, I think it is. Okay, that is done. So now we are going to select the area to enhance or modify. So let's select the subject and let's adjust the lighting. By default, it just sees if it can work out the subject for you, but you do have the ability to add to your selection with the auto selection tool, the quick selection tool, or the selection brush. And if you need to know more about how those tools work, you can check out my selection tool video, which was in the ABCs of PRC, the letter A. I'll link to it for you. Now let's just adjust the lighting of our little pup here. Oh, nope, that's not good. So I'm just going to adjust these sliders to get her nice and bright. And then we can actually use a darken or lighten brush and a color cast brush. The color cast is useful for if your photo was taken in a different kind of light. For example, a fluorescent light, everything might look a bit blue, and incandescent light, everything might look a bit yellow. So if she was looking too yellow, what I do is I just click anywhere that's supposed to be white, and then it will adjust the rest of the colors accordingly. In this photo, we don't really need adjusting. Since this is a very fluffy fluff ball of a dog, I could actually add some darkening to define her ears more, maybe even her hairstyle here to make her knot, and to help define where her feet are and her legs. We've got just around the edge of the face as well. Give her some definition, and then we can choose an effect. So for this, I'm going to choose the background, and I'm going to select different effects. Autocorrect. Sharpen just exacerbates the graininess of the photo. Vignette is kind of cute because the photo's already got a vignette. And blur. Now, you can adjust the intensity of the blur. I actually quite like a bit of blur. Let's see the selective black and white. Since our puppy is not very colourful, she's mostly brown, white and grey, I think the black and white isn't a great effect for her. So let's just stick with a blur and let's adjust that intensity way down. And click next. Now we can continue, save as, or continue editing in expert mode. And there we can see when we click on layers, we've got a selection currently for our little puppy, and you can see all the layers that have been used to get that end result. So let's take a look at the before and the after of our perfect pet portrait. Of course, it works beautifully with outdoor photos of pets. So let's take a look at one more gratuitous cute dog photo. Before we even get started, let's do some automatic shake reduction. I can just look at the before and after in that shake reduction window, and when I'm happy, click OK to get that photo a bit more in focus. And now let's go over to our guided edit and go to special edits, perfect pet. With this photo, we will need to do some straightening. Here is a fence at the back, which we can use. Let's straighten that one up. We can remove some dirt and spots, not from our puppy here. Well, in this case, it's an old doggy, but let's just clean up that background with some retouching. We don't have any pet eye in this photo either, which is great. And I think, honestly, the lighting is quite gorgeous. So let's just stick to modifying the background here. If we click background, it'll automatically select the background. And then we can choose our effects. So we can auto-correct. Whew. Now you can see autocorrect here has probably corrected it, but this gorgeous sunset light just makes him look even more gold. Sharpening, vignette, blur, selective black and white. I think because again it's not a busy background, I think the vignette is probably the nicest one for this. Of course we could leave it with no effect, but just for the purposes of this, let's leave a little vignette. And then we can continue editing in expert mode, where we can see the different effects that have been added to our photograph to get the results. So again, let's show you before. Here's before and after. Before and after. A beautiful photo of a beautiful dog. So if you're not a pet lover, what else is new in Photoshop Elements? We do have our second new guided edit that's also under special edits, extend background, which does what it says on the tin. It extends the background of your photo. Let's show you how it works. So let's start off with this photo. If you've been around Digital Scrapbooking HQ in the last couple of years, you've probably seen this photo. I used it a few times in our ABCs of PSE, but let's use it again because it's a great photo that can show you how you can use the extend background feature. So here we have a photo, a couple of years old, of our children sitting together. And say I want to use this as my Facebook cover. I need to fill in some space. Let's choose autofill and see what happens. With autofill, Photoshop Elements tries to use content-aware fill to fill in the gaps. And here's the result. Well, I really actually think it's done a great job here. The grass is quite good. There's a few repeats, but you know, it's pretty good. The only thing I would do here is now you can actually do some spot healing. So if there's any weird kind of repetitive spots here in the background, I might remove them. And I will actually use the clone stamp tool and increase the brush size here to add a few more tulips to this section. And you can continue on cloning to cover up any weird spots where Photoshop Elements has, you know, made things look a little odd. Let's click next, and then we can continue editing in expert mode. And then you can see all the layers that have been put together to make your photo extended. A lovely landscape, much like the sample image. And again, let's choose the Facebook cover and let's try autofill and see what happens. Now that is pretty great. We just need to do step 4, which is a bit of spot healing to get rid of these disembodied trunks, and maybe some mountain here can disappear. But all in all, I have to say that's a really good result for a one-click extension of a photo. So how do you think you'll be using the extend background feature? Let me know what you think and have a play around with it. Some photos work better than others. Give it a go and let me know what your results are. So now that we've looked at the guided edit, we can jump into expert mode to check out the brand new warp feature that's been added to Photoshop Elements. You can now warp any layer to any shape. So you're now able to adjust the handles around the edges of your photograph or layer individually. You can also use Bezier curve handles to curve the shapes. This has been a wish list item for Photoshop Elements users for many years. So if Warp Tool sounds fun to you, you definitely want to upgrade this year. What the Warp Tool allows you to do is to manipulate the edges of your photograph and the corners individually. So what does that actually mean? And the first thing we need to do is actually simplify our layer, because this does not work on smart objects. Then we go to transform or Control T. Then you can click on the warp mode. With our warping here, we can choose from these customized warps that we did have previously in Photoshop Elements. Or we can click and drag the corners. Click and drag and move things all around. You can literally roll up your photograph if you would like to. But let's get back to a slightly more practical use that was demoed on the front of the Photoshop Elements box this year. And that is put a picture as a reflection in some sunglasses. So here we are, my face, my famous, now famous photo of our children from Araluen that you'll be seeing once again, but it's a good example. Let's go to transform that, go into warp mode, and let's pull the edges of this photo to make it fit within my sunglasses. You can see these things here. These are called the Bezier curve handles. You can use them to adjust the curve of your photographs. And when you're happy, click the green check. And then I'm just going to reduce the opacity so it looks a bit more like a reflection. And let's do the other eye. Put it on here, drag it to the correct spot and zoom out, resize it to the approximate size we want this photo to be. Simplify the layer. And now Control T, click on the warp option, zoom in, and let's adjust it to fit inside my sunglasses. If you do click out the outside of the editing area, you will get a little alert. Don't be alarmed by that, just carry on. Then I can drag the photo to give it the look of being curved. And again, reduce the opacity. I'll make it the same, 47. May even need it to be lower than that, yeah, to just get the look of the sunglasses coming through. So there we go. That is that classic reflection image there for you. Pretty easy to achieve with the warp tool. Now, another way you could use the warp tool is with your digital scrapbook pages. So here's a good example we've got here of our letters here. Now, I'll simplify this layer once again, and then I will move it a bit and warp it. So let's go to Control T, click on the warp button, and let's warp that balloon a little bit like this. Very subtle, but we could do it again here. For this one, you can use your warp tool to make things fit. Change the angle slightly. The more slight the change, probably the better the results. It's not going to make everything look too messed up. So here's before and after, using the warp tool to make those balloon letters even more playful. If you use Photoshop Elements to create social media posts, Photoshop Elements 2022 has lots of social media specific features like quote graphics, moving pictures, and there's new features this year that build on last year's release, including being able to save your moving photos as MP4 or GIFs. And there's built-in sizing for the different social media sites that make creating your social media posts easier. Now let's take another look at a new feature that has been added to Photoshop Elements. Now, we don't just have moving photos that were added last year. I'll link you to that review. We also have moving overlays. So, moving overlays are a brand new feature that allows you to add movement and whimsy to a photograph. We have several different options. We have frames. You just simply click once to apply the overlay, and you can resize it as needed, and then click play to preview. You can click revert at the top here to get back to your original. We have graphics such as balloons and hearts and fire and steam. You can add an overlay to that photo. And I like this autumn leaves because it's a little more subtle than the giant autumn leaves. These ones are much bigger and bolder, and I definitely would need to protect the subject so that the children aren't completely blown away by the leaves. So we might stick with this other one. And where we're happy with how everything's looking, we can export those as either a GIF. So I'm going to stick with these slightly more subtle leaves here. Let's click export, and now we can choose to save it as an MP4 or a GIF or GIF, depending on where you are in the world. I know the original guy says it's GIF, but it's GIF always in my heart. One of the downsides of this new moving overlays feature is that you can't save it as a PSD, so you can't come back to it later to say, like, refine the overlay. So if you want to do that, you'll need to do that before you go out of this view, because once you're out of the view, it's gone. You'll have to rebuild it if you start again. And you'll have to export it again if you change anything. So there's moving overlays and we have moving graphics. So let's show you one of those on this little cup. And so let's go on to another kind of moving overlay that we can add. We can add graphic here, some steam onto our hot coffee. So we just want to move this steam up to where it should be. And we're going to refine the overlay, show the selection here. And I want to add, so what I want to do is move this so that it goes right up to the edge of the cup. And then I'm going to refine this so that there's no steam actually going over the edge of the cup, if that makes sense. It's not going to be super obvious as the cup is actually white. Let's see what it looks like. Ah, beautiful. Now I could also refine the overlay a little bit more and just subtract Jodie's hand here so that it looks like the steam's coming from behind. Let's see how that looks. Yes, so now it looks like it's coming from behind her hand. Very cute. So that gives you an idea of how the graphics work. We've also got some smoke and like a little, we could add a little butterfly sitting on the edge of her cup here if we wanted to be very whimsical. Let's show you how that will work. And then finally we have frames. So we resize that frame to be the correct size for our image. And now let's see how it all looks together. A little bit over the top, but now you can see what it looks like with graphics added, frames, graphics, and overlays. So let's stop this madness. And then when we're done, just click done and you will be returned to your original image, and only what you've exported is saved. So be sure that you've exported it before you click done. And then we have one final new feature in Photoshop Elements. We have the new effects panel. We have these classic effects that have been kept in this version just in case you wanted to use one of the older ones. But we have several new artistic effects that are inspired by artworks. So let's use this landscape oil on our photo here, or perhaps something trippy, dreamy. Maybe we could turn this photo into a traditional oil painting. You can choose to keep the original colors, and you can also reduce the intensity of any effects. You can apply it to just the subject or just the background if you prefer. There's lots of different effects to play with, and you can see that they've been inspired by famous paintings and styles. So you can play around with them and see what you think. I really often quite like the effects when you keep the original colours, but feel free to have a play around with all of these. We have 24 different styles that you can choose from, and you can always click revert to remove. You can always click reset to remove any of those artistic effects. or of course you can click undo. So if you like to get really creative, or perhaps you want to create some texture in a photograph for using for digital art, that kind of thing, you might enjoy these artistic effects. Have a play around. Let me know, are the artistic effects something that you're interested in? There are several other small things that have been improved. One of them is the update process for Photoshop Elements 2022. That is no longer a matter of making sure that you click update. It's silent. So that means that the updates are automatically applied whenever you open your software without you having to do anything or click on a dialog box. Do you like to create slideshows? If you like to use the video slideshow feature in Photoshop Elements, you will be excited for this year's release. If you have any previous version of Photoshop Elements and you use the video slideshows, I recommend upgrading this year. There are a handful of new animated slideshow styles to choose from. Absolutely jump on board. I love the video slideshow feature in Photoshop Elements. It's a great way to upgrade a plain boring slideshow. They've got built-in music, they've got transitions, they've got color effects. It's really good. If you haven't checked it out, I have a blog post about that too. One of the new features in Photoshop Elements Organizer is the ability to play GIF files in the organizer. Just double click to open your animated GIF file and you can see it play. So there you have my review of the new features in Photoshop Elements 2022. Now, if you have an older version of Photoshop Elements and you're trying to decide whether you should purchase the upgrade, check out Should You Upgrade to Photoshop Elements 2022. I'll take you through how you might want to use Photoshop Elements 2022 and whether I think you should upgrade. Check it out and let me know in the comments if you will be upgrading. If you've made it this far, put a firecracker emoji in the comments. Well done. Thanks so much for joining me. If you'd like to see more of my videos in your feed, you know what to do. Click the thumbs up button, subscribe, and click the bell icon to be notified of my new videos. And if you'd like to learn more about digital scrapbooking or Photoshop Elements, head to digitalscrapbookinghq.com.